Cheers. I mean, Jesus Christ, these fucking comeback videos just need to stop eventually, you know? Like, I have moved, as you guys can see, and yeah, I've been in the apartment for like 2 months alone, but I had zero internet, so I couldn't record shit, so here we are. Anyway, here's a video idea I want to do for a long time. So basically, I play racing games, you know, the channel is called RacingGamerSlovenia, so I'm kind of late to this trend, like around 6 months, probably more, but I wanted to do a tier list for some of the racing games that I played throughout the years, and then go ahead and make a series out of, well, the games that you guys choose in the comment section. So, I went on the tier list website and created this shit, so hopefully you guys enjoy. Please let me know your opinion in the comments, and let's begin with the list. Alright, so here we are. In total, I think there's around 50 games. Now, I've made sure that I've played at least an hour or two of a game, so you know I'm gonna, what I'm gonna be talking about. They're listed alphabetically. Here's the entire list, as you guys can see, and you guys probably know how this goes. Basically, the more I like the game, the higher I'm gonna put it. You know, it's how tier lists work. Anyway, let's start off with BeamNG Drive. So I love the game. I mean, I personally prefer you know, games that have a good story, which BeamNG obviously does not have. However, it is really a revolutionary game because, you know, a whole of the crashing physics. Like, I think I have around 200 hours on that game because it's just so fun to just fuck around in that game. And it really, there isn't, in my opinion, a game like it out there. I mean, you have Wreckfest, which I haven't played yet, but I don't know, BeamNG is going in the amazing tier because it is such a different, you know, car game from, you know, others on this list. And next up we have Blur, which I haven't played Blur in years, and when I did, I didn't have a, you know, a very powerful PC, so it was kind of laggy, but it still got the feel of the game. So basically this is, I think it might be like one of the very few games that actually has power-ups. So basically it's like Mario Kart, but with real cars. And it's super fun. I mean, I don't really remember it all that much. I don't think there's a whole lot to the story and all that. I'm gonna put it in the pretty good tier. I mean, it's still a good game, but I'm not really inclined to revisit it unless you guys want me to. So next up is my personal favorite, Burnout Paradise. Now, I haven't played the remastered version, but this game is so much fun. Not really much of a story behind it, but just the whole, I guess, crashing physics and all that. It's so satisfying. Like, I revisit that game like at least once a year, and it's really fun, you know, progressing, unlocking new cars. Now, I haven't played this game in multiplayer yet. I might never do, but still, even for a single player game, like, you know, there's all these collectibles. There's always stuff to do, and it has a lot of replay value because, you know, every single time that you play to the game, you're gonna play it in a different way, I guess. So it's gonna go actually in the God tier. There you go. Now, Car Mechanic Simulator, I think that I put the 2018 version here, but it really, it doesn't matter. Like, basically all of them are the same to me. I think I played like 2 different versions, and it's so repetitive. I'm really not a huge fan of, you know, the whole gameplay aspect. However, I have to admit that, you know, if you're new to cars, you can learn so much about, you know, how cars work from this game, and really, it is more of an educational game. And it's not very fun. I mean, I guess when you buy a car to restore it, that's, you know, changes, but just doing the fucking oil changes for like the first 2 hours and stuff, I wasn't a huge fan of that. So I played it, I think, only like 2 times for a couple of hours at a time, and I got tired of it pretty quickly. But as I said, you can learn a lot from it, so it's gonna go in the decent tier. Yeah, Car Town. Now, not a whole lot of racing going on in Car Town, especially not these days because it's, you know, been that since 2014. But I love collecting cars in video games, and Car Town was unique because, you know, it was a Facebook game and you could basically just buy cars, collect them, make your own garage. It was like Sims, I guess, but with cars. Like basically the kind of racing it had was just like clicking while the counter went up. It was really, you know, silly, I guess, but that was the whole point of the game. And just collecting cars, you know, each day, I think, or like multiple times per week, you would have new car releases, and it was just fucking, like, it was fun, especially for a Facebook game. And I'm sad that it shut down, but then again, you know, all online games have a lifespan. It's gonna go in the amazing tier for me. And in case you guys are wondering, Car Town Streets, which was basically a spin-off for the tablets and mobile phones, it would go in the underwhelming tier, because I also played that, but it just wasn't as fun in my opinion. Now, next up, Cobra 11. Now, I'm gonna go to the games that are, you know, in the same series in chronological order. So you guys have probably never heard of this series, but Cobra 11 is a really, I think it's super long running now. I think it's been going on since like the 80s or the 90s, but it's a German TV show which basically focuses on two cops, you know, chasing criminals, and basically in every single episode there's like multiple car chases. So I watched this series a lot when I was a child, and they actually made some games. In fact, I have 4 of them for this list, and all of them are pretty low budget, but still. I think the earliest one was Cobra 11 Nitro, which it's, I don't know, I don't know how to put it, but you could see that it was made on a very tight budget, and yet as a kid I loved it. It was very simple. I mean, it was based on the same engine as World Racing 2, which we will see later on in this list, and you could just download modes for World Racing 2 and basically load them up into the game. Most of them would be completely broken, but I would just still play the shit out of it. I free roamed for so many hours in that game, even though, you know, there really wasn't a point to it. So for me, it's gonna go in the pretty good tier, Cobra 11 Nitro. Now, next up in the series was Crash Time, the one which I think I probably played the least, and yet, you know, it had a bigger map, more cars, objectively probably a better game, but it just doesn't have the same nostalgia value as the first one does. So it's gonna go in the decent tier for me. I don't think it's a bad game still. Now, the next one was called Crash Time 2, obviously very imaginative, and it was actually my favorite of the Crash Time or Cobra 11 games, I guess. And it actually, I think it came out in like 2006, and the graphics was super impressive for the time. Now, the fact that the frame rate was like, I think, locked to 30, and there was this motion blur going on, basically you would get headaches when playing this game. And I, of course, didn't turn off motion blur, so it was like, god damn it. But yeah, I played the demo of this game because I couldn't find a copy of the original for a long ass time. I just free roamed the area that was, you know, you could explore in the demo version, and it was so good. And then one time we went with the family to the store, and I was like, oh my god, Dad, there's fucking Crash Time 2, please fucking buy it for me. And he did. And then I played, I think I completed the game in like the first 24 hours when I got the full game. So I mean, it obviously has flaws. It's like, I remember faces of the 2 detectives that you play as in every single car, like just completely blank. It's hilarious, but I love Crash Time 2, so good. I'm gonna go in the amazing tier, which I think that's basically only the nostalgia value, because it's not an amazing game, but I will defend it as a good game. That means a whole lot to me personally. So Crash Time 3, basically just like Crash Time 2, but with some new areas, and I don't know, it just doesn't have the same nostalgia value for me, so I'm gonna put it in the decent tier. I don't think they improved all that much. They added some new cars and some new, I think, like mechanics, which I don't really remember. It's been a long time since I played Crash Time 3, and I think I played like the fourth one, Crash Time Undercover, but I really was not a fan of it. I don't think I played it for long enough, or I really don't remember it, so I'm not gonna include it on this tier list. And next up, a mobile game, CSR2. You guys might remember this is the game which I've played as the last series on this channel, and then my internet got cut off and I couldn't record it anymore. And honestly, I'm not sure if I'm going to revisit it unless you guys want me to, because it's a good game. It is a really good mobile game. There's always stuff to do. And yet, for me, it just got kind of tedious for a while, you know, because I would have this cycle because I work 12 hours. So basically, I would wake up, I would grind the same event, I would go to work, I would come home, I would grind yet again, I would, you know, fall asleep, I would wake up, grind the game, go to work 12 hours, come back. So it really got tedious after a while, and it kind of, you know, I don't like, it is a fun game, but for me it really is kind of repetitive. So for me, it's gonna go in the pretty good tier. I know there's a huge community behind it, but I don't think, like, if it had pink slips like Racing Rivals, this would be probably, it would definitely be better than Racing Rivals if it had pink slips. But it doesn't, so that kind of, you know, just like retracts from the whole experience, personally for me. So next up, Dirt, the original one from like, I don't know how old the original Dirt is, like Colin McRae Dirt, like 2010, something around there. And as far as rally games go, which I really didn't play many of, the original Dirt was definitely my favorite. I mean, it's like a pretty old game, and yet it gave you a really good idea of what it's like, you know, to drive on different surfaces, and it was really cool, you know, the level of progression. However, I'm not personally really huge fan of rally games. I mean, not that I'm not a fan, I just don't play them all that much. So for me, it's gonna go in the pretty good tier. And Dirt Rally, like from what I've heard, and I also played this for a few weeks, it is basically like the ultimate, you know, rally simulator. It's so realistic. You have a shitload of cars, shitload of different tracks. It's ultra realistic, and I just haven't gotten, you know, back around to playing it. But I did like it a lot. I mean, I sucked at it. I remember I could barely like drive an E30 M3 around like a German track, which was like mostly tarmac. It was, yeah, it was pretty fun. However, I did play both Dirt and Dirt Rally on keyboard, so that probably, you know, didn't help my whole experience with the game, but still pretty fun. So next up, Driver, with a 3 instead of an E, because it was the third game in the series. Now, I tried playing the original Driver, and I couldn't pass the tutorial because I was young, stupid, and a bit of a dipshit. So I actually didn't pass the tutorial on the first Driver game. With that said, I did play Driver. I'm just gonna call it Driver. Like, he got such a fucking stupid name. And it's bad. It's really fucking bad. Like, the one thing that's gonna make me put this thing not in the U tier is the fact that you could explore, you know, the different areas right from the beginning. You didn't really have to progress through the like story mode and all that. But it really didn't offer all that much. It was buggy. The driving like physics weren't all that enjoyable. So yeah, and I think like, well, not I think, but they definitely made things much better in the sequel, which was Driver Parallel Lines, which I think up to this day is one of the most underrated games of all time. Like, Parallel Lines is so good. Like, why don't people remember this game? Like, I know it's a GTA clone, but still, it's not like exactly a GTA clone, because there was much more of a focus on driving than like shooting and all that stuff. So I will consider it a racing game, and it's really good. Like, this game comes so close to being God tier, and I think it's actually made by the same people who made GTA, because I remember there is a car called Rhapsody, both in GTA Online and in Driver Parallel Lines, and it's basically the same car, so I think Rockstar might have produced this. I'm not totally sure, but like in this game you can play in both 1978 and 2006, both of which make the game feel, you know, much different. The story, while being cliche, is still a lot of fun, so it's gonna go in the amazing tier. Really good game. Like, guys, check it out if you love, you know, GTA. Like, I think this is basically like GTA San Andreas, but with slightly better graphics and more focus on driving. So I really love that game. Next up, Driver San Francisco. Now, this game has, as you guys might know if you have, if you're familiar with this game, it has a really good, like, unique, I guess, system where you can basically like hop from one car into another and, you know, mess up your opponents like that, and basically just fuck around and have so much fun with this game. Like, like yet again, good story on all that, and the city is huge. There is a lot of different things to do. I mean, so many different aspects to the game. It's gonna go in the amazing tier as well. I would probably still prefer Parallel Lines over it, just because, you know, I did play it more when I was even younger than San Francisco, but both of these are really good, very underrated games. So next up, Drive Club, the only PS4 racing game that I've played, and I didn't play it all that much. I mean, it was on PS4, so I was really terrible, but I did enjoy Drive Club quite a bit. Had a lot of different cars, a lot of different tracks, and I really couldn't ever get around to mastering it. So while I'm probably gonna put this a bit too low in most people's opinion, I'm gonna put it in the decent tier, because I do not have a whole lot of, you know, experience with this game. So there you go. And considering I did sell my PS4, I'm probably not gonna be, you know, playing this game much more. So there you go. Now, next up, Flat Out Ultimate Carnage. Now, I did play more Flat Out 2 than Ultimate Carnage. However, I do consider that, you know, Ultimate Carnage is not a sequel to Flat Out 2. It's basically just a better version of it. Has more cars, has more AI, and it's gonna go in the god tier list. Like, this game is so much fun. Like, you don't even have to, you know, make progress to the story mode or whatever, or the challenge mode. You can basically just, like, you know, start it, play Demolition Derby or 2 or 3 or, you know, 50, and it's gonna be insanely entertaining every single time you turn it on. And that's definitely not true for the sequel. Now, like, one day I went onto like this Slovenian pirate site that we have, and I just saw Flat Out 3 Chaos and Destruction. I was like, oh my god, I love Flat Out, this is gonna be the best thing ever. And I did kind of feel weird that, you know, it really wasn't advertised. I never heard that there was gonna be a new Flat Out game coming out, and when I turned on Flat Out 3 Chaos and Destruction, it was just, it was like, basically, it's probably the worst game on this list, like, by a fucking mile. It's one of the, it's not, I don't think it's one of the, but it is in fact the most disappointing game I've ever played. This game is shit. Like, seriously, I would probably prefer playing Big Rigs over this piece of shit, just because, you know, Big Rigs, at least you can have some entertainment value, but this is just so dull, it's so boring. There's nothing to this game that, you know, makes it resemble Flat Out Ultimate Carnage apart from the name. Like, this game is just shit. So next up, Ford Racing 3. Now, I've played Ford Racing 2 and also the off-road game, whatever that was, but I only remember playing Ford Racing 3, and it is, you know, like a low-budget game. You can only play with Fords, as the name would suggest, but it's actually surprisingly fun. I like the fact that you can keep on unlocking new cars, you know, progressing to, like, the race mode, and I'm not sure what it's called, but there's also, like, a challenge mode. Keep on unlocking new cars. The game is super short, but, you know, for what it's trying to be, I'm gonna put it in the decent tier, because I still had a decent, you know, amount of fun with it, so there you go. And next up, the only Forza game that I've ever played, and I don't think I played enough of it, so it was Forza Horizon 3. Now, I think, I don't know what I think I had some shit going on in real life, which basically made me forget about this game. But this was the one that was set in Australia, and I just got my new PC, wanted, you know, a cool new racing game to record, and I think I only did like 1 or 2 episodes, which was a shame. Because this game was actually so much fun. For some reason, I don't know. I really don't know why I stopped playing it, but it is a really cool game. You have tons of cars, tons of events. Obviously there was multiplayer, so I really should have kept on playing this game, and I'll likely revisit it very soon. So there you go, it's gonna go in the pretty good tier. Why not amazing? I don't know, it's borderline, but I don't know. It's my list, and yeah, I'm not really not sure about that. Anyway, next up, Grid, the original one from 2008. Now, this game, when it came out, it was revolutionary, basically. Like, there's so many different things to this game, so many different, you know, motorsports. It's really cool, in my opinion. So much fun. Like, you can still fuck around, have some fun. There's drifting and all that. But it, up to this day, like, it is one of the most realistically handling racing games, I would say, and it is actually a ton of fun. So I'm gonna put it in the amazing tier, which I don't think I played like Grid 2 or whatever it was called, but I did play Autosport, and something went wrong with this game. Like this game, for some reason, like, I know I would never play it, but for some reason it was installed on a school PC during college. So I was like, you know, I go on the PC, there's like a really fucking boring lecture. I just, you know, I'm exploring to the computer, and I just see Grid Autosport icon on the fucking desktop, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll play it. So I played it, and it was good. I mean, it wasn't as good as the original Grid, and the physics for some reason was super arcadey, I guess you would call it. It was still fun. I mean, I didn't really learn much from that lecture, so mission accomplished. I mean, fucking look at me now. It's gonna go in the decent tier, but yeah. Next up, GTI Racing. Have you guys ever fucking heard of that? Because I really am not even sure how I managed to find that game. It's just, oh boy, GTI Racing. You race Volkswagens basically, and I'm not really even a huge Volkswagen fan, so I don't know why the fuck I played this, but I did. I think it's based on basically the same engine as World Racing 2, and I don't know. It's like, it's not a terrible game, but the campaign is short. There isn't actually that many cars to choose from, and it just gets dull really quickly. So it's gonna go in the underwhelming tier. It's nowhere as bad as Driver or that fucking flat out bullshit, but yeah, still not. It wasn't, you know, like the greatest racing game I've ever played. So next up, Juiced and Juiced 2. Now, these are some of the most underrated games of all time, in my opinion. Like, Juiced, the original one, there's such a good card selection to that. You know, you have all these opponents, basically all of them have different traits, and the whole card selection is so good. Like especially on the lower tier, which many modern games basically sleep on all these lower tier older cars, and Juiced, obviously being from the mid 2000s, it actually has all that. So this game focuses more on like low and mid tier cars rather than like sports cars. I think basically the best cars that you can get is like a C5 Corvette and the first gen Viper, which are fast cars obviously, but there's no like hyper cars. So it was fun. I mean, I do remember smashing a fucking phone charger one time because the handling was so frustrating, and I couldn't pass like one challenge in a fucking Toyota Corolla. So that was fun. It's gonna go in the amazing tier for me. Now, Juice 2 is even better. Like, this game is so good, and the card selection. I mean, they have a fucking Tiburon, for God's sake. Like, it's the card selection out of all of these games is probably my favorite. Like, it has basically everything. Like I guess the handling is not like perfect, and yet it kind of makes up for that. I mean, okay, just ignore the fact that there's like a stripper on screen every fucking 20 seconds for some reason. But Juice 2 is a truly fucking underrated game, and I love it. I love it so fucking much. So it's actually gonna go in the God tier as well. I do think it's better than the original, although not by that much. And yet it's, I don't know, it's really good. So next up, another one of these fucking games that I don't know how I found. I mean, I used to just like play basically anything that was related to cars, and this here is a really odd example. So it's Knight Rider, the game. You play as Knight Rider. I mean, I love, you know, the series from the 80s, obviously the original Knight Rider, and I didn't even mind the 2008 reboot all that much, although they cancelled it only after one season, which, you know, it wasn't all that great, the reboot, so I get that. But they also made a video game. And the video game, as you would expect, is interesting, and it's also pretty bad. So like there's all these like different missions. It feels like a fucking shooter basically. It's just, but you're in a car, and it's I might want to revisit that just for the shits and giggles, but it's not a good game by any stretch. So it's gonna go in the bad tier. It's nowhere. I would prefer to fucking play Knight Rider for 10 hours than play for cars, than Flat Out 3 for like 2. So it's not the worst game ever. So next up, LA Rush. One of these games that actually has a really strong story for some reason. Like basically at the beginning of the game, they steal all your cars and you're left just with a Nissan 240SX or something like that, I think. And basically you complete races and you basically build your car collection back up, and it's really good. I think I continued playing it just for the story mode, and I wasn't disappointed. Like the handling was kind of iffy. Was pretty iffy actually, and you know, it's mid-2000s, so you know it's gonna be cheesy, so it's gonna go in the pretty good tier for me, but it's definitely an underrated gem, so I really do like that. And now we come to the Need for Speed series. Now I didn't play every single Need for Speed game, in fact I didn't play most of them, especially not the newer ones, but I'll definitely play Need for Speed Heat, because from what I've heard, it's actually this time around a really cool game. So I'm gonna play Need for Speed Heat, but I haven't yet, so it's not gonna be on this list. But let's start with Hot Pursuit 2, the first Need for Speed game that I've played. I think it was like the second game that I ever got for my PC, and it was really good. I mean, I didn't really appreciate it at the time that much, but it was still pretty fun, you know. Definitely unique, super advanced for its time. What was it, like 2002 that the game came out? The graphics were actually really good. You had a lot of different cars. I mean, not a whole lot of events, but you know, it's an older game, so you really can't blame that for it. It's gonna go in the pretty good tier for me. And then what's the next one? Underground 2. Now, I'm gonna be, this is gonna be kind of controversial, I think, but Underground 2 is not my favorite Need for Speed, because it doesn't have cops, and like, I think that we can all agree that in retrospect, the customization on the cars got completely silly, even though it was, you know, obviously super awesome at the time. It does also have a Tiburon, so that's a plus, but I really didn't appreciate it enough as a kid, and it is really advanced, you know. Obviously it did change the landscape of racing games forever, so it's gonna go in the pretty good tier for me. I don't have that much attachment to it. However, Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 is a different story, because I love that game. It is, like, when I think of a racing game, I think of the original Most Wanted. It's not perfect. It does get kind of repetitive, you know, progressing to the blacklist. Basically, you know, you complete a few races, you know, escape from the cops a few times, upgrade your car, complete some races, escape the cops, upgrade your car. It is a repetitive process, and yet it somehow manages to be, you know, really fun. Doesn't become tedious, because, you know, like the cop chases out of any game I've ever played, are by far the most satisfying. So it's gonna go in the amazing tier for me. Not exactly God tier, because as I did say, it does kind of get repetitive, but I still do love that game a whole lot. So it does have a space in my heart, obviously. Now next up is Need for Speed Carbon, and it's basically like a copy of Carbon, Most Wanted, which is not a bad game to copy, so I'm perfectly fine with it. However, I really don't have that much attachment to it, unlike with Most Wanted, so it's gonna go in the pretty good tier for me. Obviously, it's still an amazing game, but it's just, it's not Most Wanted. It's not. So next up, which one was next? I think that Pro Street came out in like 2008 or something like that, and I actually love Pro Street. Such a good game. Like, people have really not liked it when it initially came out, but I did. For some reason, like, you had all these different disciplines, you know, you had to beat like the Speed King, the Drift King, the Drip King, and there was like another one as well, I'm not sure, but it really isn't as iconic as, let's say, Most Wanted. I mean, you guys, the ones that have played Most Wanted, all know that the bad guy was Razor. Like, can you even just like, do you even know what car the villain in like Pro Street drove? I mean, it was an Evo 10, but still, it's, I don't know, it's not as iconic, but it is still a good game. Gonna go in the pretty good tier for me. And next up, Undercover. Now, people really dislike Undercover, and it's not like I disagree. I mean, it's not a terrible game, still has, you know, some redeeming aspects, and it's been a long time since I played it, so it's gonna go in the decent tier for me. It's not terrible, like far from the worst Need for Speed I've ever played, and I don't know, it does have some redeeming qualities. You know, it's like a really mediocre version of Most Wanted, but like with worse cops, so it's okay at best, in my opinion. Now, next up, I think it was Hot Pursuit 2010, and this is probably the game on this list that I've played the least. I have the least experience with it, so it's gonna go in the decent tier for me as well. From what I remember, I did enjoy playing as cops more. There is some really cool mechanics, but I don't remember enough of it, you know, to put it higher or lower. But I think it's still a, you know, decent game, probably better than Undercover, honestly. So yeah, now I'm not sure. I think that the run came out in like 2011, and then 2013. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's go with the run next. Now, as I said, I like you know, when a game has a decent story, and this one is cliche as shit. It's really cliche. And yet, that didn't really, you know, stop me from enjoying it, so the run is gonna go in the pretty good tier. The racing is cool, the graphics are awesome, the scenery is sick. So the run was actually a, you know, pretty good game. So next up, oh boy, Most Wanted 2012. Fuck that game. Fuck. Like, the fact that Most Wanted 2012 even carries a Most Wanted name is a fucking disgrace, in my opinion. Like, it's basically a carbon copy of Burnout Paradise, but without the crashing. Like, the story is... Does it even have a story? I don't remember it having a story. Like, it's just... It's... Like, if a game ever came close to being as disappointing as Flat Out 3, it would be Most Wanted 2012. In my opinion, I know some people like that game, but no. Just, it would go in the underwhelming tier, but just the fact that it carries the Most Wanted name and was marketed as being like, you know, a sequel to Most Wanted or something like that, fuck that. Ugh, god, I dislike that game. And it wasn't even like all too terrible, but it's like Burnout Paradise without the crashing and, you know, going to the billboards, exploring the world. So no, not a fan, not my cup of tea. However, we do have Shift 2 Unleashed next. I didn't play the original Shift, which was basically like, I guess, the evolution of Pro Street, and Shift 2 is, I think, the ultimate simulation. As far as, you know, Need for Speed games go, it is awesome. You have all these, you know, obviously real tracks, real cars. You can, you know, customize your cars. So basically, this might have been like one of my favorite Need for Speeds of all time. It's probably up there with Most Wanted, even though like Most Wanted is still slightly above it. But Shift 2 is a really fucking cool game. And next up, Racing Rivals. Honestly, like Racing Rivals is my favorite game of all time, as far as not just racing games but games in general, because it was the game that, you know, changed my life the most. I went into detail in one of the previous videos, but Racing Rivals is the greatest game of all time in my opinion. Like CSR2 could match it or could be better than it, but it doesn't have pink slip. It's just it just, I don't know. And even if it had pink slip CSR2, I still, you know, was such a part of the Racing Rivals community that I don't think that there's ever gonna be a game that's gonna, you know, play as big of a role in my life as Racing Rivals did. So I miss that game every single fucking day. I think about it, you know, I wish I could go back, but sadly it's gone and it's probably not coming back, which is unfortunate, but, you know, I still appreciate that, you know, it was here for us. So there you go. And next up, Street Legal Racing Redline. Now this is one of those really fucking buggy games that you can only enjoy with mods, and it was actually the first game that I played on the channel, and it was it was interesting. Like, I was a fucking squeaker back in 2011 when I started RGS, and oh boy, this game. I mean, when it has mods and it has like, it's basically like a 2000s version of BeamNG Drive with, like, you know, obviously it has like real customization. Like, you can basically take parts of the car, which it's unique. It really is unique, and I'm gonna put it in the pretty good tier, especially with mods. I mean, some versions of the game are less stable than others, but none of them are super stable. So it's still just like Car Mechanic Simulator, but with racing. Even though it's more buggy and all that, it's unique. So next up, Street Racing Syndicate. Now this is like Juice 2, but way more cringy. It does have open world, but I think that the card selection is basically like 95% JDM cards. I think the only cards that aren't Japanese are like Acuras, which are still Hondas in my opinion, and some Volkswagens. Like, I think you have a Mark IV Golf and a Jetta. So the car selection is pretty limited, and the storyline, if it does have one, I remember there's like fucking strippers everywhere. It's just like, it's gonna go in the decent tier for me. I don't think the game has aged very well, and then again, I haven't played it in years, so my opinion might be kind of skewed. But next up, Test Drive Unlimited. I played this game so much. I love Test Drive Unlimited. Like, I remember when I got it back in like 2007, my PC wasn't powerful enough to handle it, and I would still play it. I would explore the whole fucking Hawaii island with a silver Audi TT that I put so many kilometers or miles on. I don't think I changed the magic unit, but I don't know. So many, like, you can basically make your fun in that game. You can explore the entire island. It doesn't have much of a story mode or whatever, but it was revolutionary, really, and so many different cars. It's basically a car collecting game, and it's just pure enjoyment. Now, as I say with Just 2, it's not, the handling is not perfect, but it really makes up for it in, you know, many other categories. So next up, the sequel, TDU2. Yeah, it wasn't as good in my opinion. Like, just, oh, that fucking beginning cutscene was so fucking cringe, dude. And then you go to the fucking car wash, and you're like, why the fuck would you even put that into the game, you know? Like TDU2, obviously you have another island, more cars, some DLC stuff, the casino and all that. It's still a good game, but I'm really not sure whether I should put it in the amazing or pretty good tier. I think it's probably, I wanna rank it like, I think that TDU1 set such a high standard that I'm probably just gonna put it in the amazing tier, because it would be a really cool game, you know. Even it would be probably even better if this if TDU2 didn't, you know, like set our standards so high. So next up, Toll Garage Driver 2, the first racing game that I've ever played. Actually, my dad bought it for me along with my first ever PC, and then we just played it. And you have so many different categories, and it's amazing. It really is. Like I think it came out in like 2002, 2003, and it really didn't feel as dated. You had so many different, you know, categories, like I said, to race. It was unique, and the Toll Garage Driver 3, the sequel, was also super unique. Because it had even more content. Like, this game was so fucking filled with content. I don't think I even finished it because it got so tough towards the end, and yet there was always stuff to do. Like, I don't know, just unique for its time, really unappreciated in my opinion. So next up, Trackmania United Forever. I decided to go with United Forever instead of Nations Forever because I did also play United Forever, which is basically like Nations Forever but with more game modes. So basically you have 7 different types of vehicles and each of them drives super uniquely. And Trackmania, if you guys have heard of it, it can be like one of the most mindfucky racing games of all time. Like, the gameplay can be so fast, like even for a beginner, you know, just the satisfaction when you complete a stunt is insane. And I never really mastered it, but still, there is just something about Trackmania, you know, getting that, shaving that time down by thousandths of a second at a time. It's satisfying as shit. And it also has some other game modes. Now, I mostly played with the stadium car, but all the other ones, you know, they just add to the experience. So God tier for me. Next up, Trackmania Stadium. It's basically like United Forever, but only the stadium car, so it doesn't have that much content, so it's gonna go in the amazing tier for me because the gameplay is still, you know, amazing. And for the last game, we have World Racing 2. Now, much like Street Legal Racing Redline, this game is only really can be enjoyed, in my opinion, with mods. And you have a lot of mods for this game. So many different cars, so many different maps, and you basically have to make your own fun with this game. And it's cool. The engine is surprisingly, you know, reliable, I guess, for modding, so it's gonna go in the pretty good tier for me just because of its potential. So this is my list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please let me know what games you want me to play. I'm thinking of live streaming some of these games, perhaps even tonight or whatever. So follow me on Twitch if you want to see me live stream. Subscribe to me on YouTube for more content. I'll see you guys in the next video whenever that comes out, but hopefully soon. Take care.